Okay, here's where things start to get a bit interesting. So what we're going to do in this get regex matches function is we're going to capture some of this information for use later on. So what we're going to do is for each match, we're going to create a match object. So we'll create that, and this object is where we're going to store our details about this match, about each match. And what we're going to do with those objects is we're going to add them to an array of objects. So let's create our array. We'll create an empty array, and then when we're all done, we'll return that array. So we will call this function, and we'll get a list of matches. We'll get an array of matches, and we can use those in the rest of our script. So let's return that array. So we're going to return that to our calling function. And now what do we want? Well, first of all, we want whatever matches. So we're going to say match obj.value equals whatever the match, whatever the first member of the match is. And I'll show you why we're using this array notation. This will become clearer in a video or two. And we also want to capture the offset. So we'll say match obj, and we'll say begin offset is equal to the match index. Remember, we saw the match index down here, and we can actually capture the end offset by using the last index. So let's delete this, and let's doctor this up here. So it's match obj end offset is equal to the last index, because remember, this last index moves along after each match to the end of each map, so we know where the beginning offset is and the end offset. And for now, I think that's good. That's all we'll capture. So let's save the changes. Now let's create a variable up here, matches, because we want to query this. We want to get a match object, and then we want to query it. So let's do matches, and we'll get the matches. Now, one thing we might consider doing here is, if we know that we don't have a match at all, we could return, we could call this, and what we'd end up with is an empty matches array. So this would be empty. But what we might want to do is make it a little more efficient. Let's see if there's a match first before we even jump into that function. So we'll do if regex text equals true, then we'll call that. Otherwise, we're just going to skip it, and that'll make our script a little bit more efficient. So let's put in another closing bracket there, and let's indent these. Okay, so now what we can do is we can look at these. Now, first of all, let's check the length of this, because we want to see how many matches we got in each of those paragraphs that we're testing. So we can use the length property on our array. Let's save the changes, and let's go back here. And if we click in this top paragraph, we know we only have one match. And let's see, why are we getting 0? We've got a problem here. Yeah, we're getting 0. Okay, so let's see what the problem is. So let's see. We're doing an exec. We have a global finish, and we're returning. Oh, we're not. Okay, here's what I missed. We need to push each one of these objects onto the array. So we didn't do that, so the array stayed empty. So we need to push each one of these objects on the array. So that's the problem. Okay, so we put that in there, and now this should work. So we click in the first paragraph. That's going to return a 1. This one's going to return a 3. And this one, I believe, has 2 occurrences. That's going to return a 2. So that gives us what we want. Now, what we can do before we move on, let's just look at the first member here of the first member of this array. So we'll say alert matches, and we'll just get the first one, and we'll do the reflect properties to see what it contains. Now we know what it's going to contain, because we can see that we can see that down here. It's going to return a value, a begin offset, and an end offset. But let's look at it anyway. So we'll go back to FrameMaker, and we'll click in here and we'll run it. And we got an error because I have a typo. So let's fix that. This should be ES. Save the changes. Go back here. One thing you might notice is when you get an error here, it will report a line number. This reported line number 13, and for some reason when you look in your script, it's actually going to be one line off. You can see it was actually line 14. So if you ever see a line number in your console, just look one line down, and that's where it is. It's always off by one number. So let's click in here and let's see. Let's clear our error. Yeah, and so there we go. So we got the value, the begin offset, the end offset, and we have some other properties. Now we'll show you how we can use that in our script.